Our take on the post-racial moment is that post-racialism, like colorblindness, is an idea that has a lot of intuitive weight. Just seems to make sense at a very basic kind of emotional level, and it has a great appeal to Americans because they don't actually want to be racist. You know, if you ask an American in his or her conscious mind, you know, do you harbor horrible feelings toward people of color, they will say no, you know, and I think that's a good aspiration for us to have. It would be much worse if Americans said, oh yes, we harbor terrible feelings and toward each other and we don't care. We think that's perfectly, you know, great way to be. And I think what Rich is pointing to, the notion that interpersonal racism is actually reduced for certain people in certain places, is a reflection of that moral aspiration that Americans hold, not to be racist. I think the problem is that the idea that we're in post-racialism, or that post-racialism is the way to express our racial morals, it reflects that Americans don't actually understand how racism works very well. I've been doing this work for 25 years, and really over the last 5 years, as I've been talking to audiences that are not so close to the work, you know, they're who care, but are a little bit further out, I'm realizing that people just don't know anything. They don't really understand. Most people think racism is individual, intentional, and explicit, that is what defines a racist act. And the way in which our laws and structures piled on top of racist history creates our racial divide, that's really hidden and it's not very well understood. So as I go about doing my work and our staff does, we try to really grapple with that reality that we know things that most Americans do not know and do not think about most of the time when they're trying to even move themselves beyond racism. So part of what happens when you think that racism is an individual matter, that it's built into people's brains, is that it appears to have no real solution, collective solution. If you define racism in the individual way, the solution is to change each person's individual mind, to open their mind, to, you know, have them be able to see people of color not as a threat but as a benefit, for example. And that, you know, there's something about that project going from one mind to the next mind to the next mind that feels impossible and huge and never-ending. And so that, I think, begins to create the impression that racism is part of human life. You can't really do anything about it. The US did its job by passing the laws that prohibit explicit racism, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, and so on. And now, in 2009, there's nothing else for us to do, particularly because we managed to get over our individual racism enough to elect a black president. So we're in a situation now where structural, the things that could really close the racial divide are actually new rules, new structures, new institutions, but Americans won't support those because they can't see the need for them. That seems to me to be the political problem that we have to solve. So very quickly, our approach to solving it, the Applied Research Center approach to solving it, is to reframe the racial debate so that there is a clear alternative to post-racialism. If post-racialism is an emotionally appealing, intuitive idea, it seems to me we have to be able to present an emotionally appealing, intuitive alternative that is something along the lines of racial consciousness. We're still working on this and figuring out what the best language is, but clearly being able to see the racial divide, to see it honestly, to grapple with it, that's an idea that seems to have some traction with people because, you know, as much as having a black president signals post-racialism, many people, not everybody, but many people can see very clearly that poverty is very racialized in this country, that the criminal justice system works in a racist way. It doesn't take that much for people to be able to see that. It's what you then do about that that is the question.